Hi everyone, it's Jan from Jan Plans Things, and today I've got a really exciting little review or overview for you guys. I don't really call them reviews because they're kind of quick, but I want to show you this new thing I've gotten in, which is watercolors by Greenleaf and Blueberry. So I've got two tins. I have the adventure set, which is in here, and also a new one which is in here, which is the mineral set. And I kind of wanted to unbox this in front of you so you guys can kind of see how everything's packaged. I'm just going to move this out of the way. So it comes in a bigger protective casing, and I've taken that off because I get all my packages at work and then I get them, and it's a bit easier for me to take it home when it's a bit smaller. It's got this lovely string around it. I do like the little attention to detail, kind of like a present being received. So let me have a look at this. So inside the package, it's really sweet. There's a little thank you note, handwritten, which I always think is a lovely touch. A little sticker with the Greenleaf and Blueberry logo on it, and a little mail order form. And here's the package. Okay, so loudness. I ripped it. Oh god. And here's the card. And a little bit of literature. It shows all the colours in the Greenleaf and Blueberry colour chart, as well as just a little bit of information on how all the paints are made. So I've been on a bit of a sorry, I'll put this away so it stops crinkling and ruining the voiceover. Okay, let me just get some scissors. Okay, here is the mineral. Okay, so here's the mineral collection. So the thing is, I've been on a bit of a handmade watercolor kick recently, because ever since I had my little journal meetup with Peppercon, who also makes her own watercolors, and Shane Chan on Instagram, I've just kind of been really interested in learning about pigments and watercolors and where they come from. So the Greenleaf and Blueberry, they're kind of like the biggest name in the handmade watercolor scene, and their paints just sell out so fast. Like, you have to literally, it's like buying Beyonce tickets or something. So the tickets sell out in seconds. Paints, sorry. So this one is the mineral collection, and I bought this one because it kind of complements my my adventure set, which is a little bit different. So go open them. It's packaged really lovely, little protective bubble, and then this. So they're all hand wrapped and painted, and there's a little swatch card as well, but I'm going to swatch them myself because I kind of want to see them on kind of like a big card. So I've prepped all these cards in advance. This is Shane's idea, so I'll call this Shane Chan Inspired, where she has this little stencil and a little bit of information about this, and she puts this in a coin collector's purse. I don't have one yet, but I was so inspired by seeing her little swatch things. I think it's a great idea to organize everything. Sorry, that's Humphrey walking in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to unwrap these, and I'm going to swatch the whole set, and I'll be right back. So I was chatting to my pigment gurus about this when I was swatching, because the colors react very differently to what you're used to, because they're natural pigments and also like either earth-based, gemstone-based, sorry, my words tripping over my own tongue, and it means that the pigments travel very differently to what you're used to. So I found it really useful to swatch them on the larger cards. So what I've got on the right hand side of each card is like the solid color, and then I'm just going to drop a little bit of color on the top. I Shane recommends doing it with a water brush, but I don't actually have one at the moment. I lost it. So I'm just using my bigger brush from White Nights and then just using that. And some of these colors, like the ochres, are lovely and smooth, while the others are much more subtle. So they're very different to what you're used to compared to if you're using synthetic colors like ultramarine, what you'll more commonly see. And these colors tend to be very expensive, even if you are buying them from a more commercial brand like Daniel Smith, because the actual pigments themselves are so expensive. Like, for example, malachite is actually a crushed malachite stone, so that obviously does impact the price of it. So it's just something to consider when you're purchasing watercolors like these, and thinking about the usage for these colors because of how they react differently to what you're used to. Okay, so I've just finished swatching all of the paints in the 2 sets that I have. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about the design of the pans. They come in these little tins, and there's also a tiny little magnet on the bottom so that they can take them around, and they kind of don't move at all. So they're like nice and quite strong magnets. Couple of things that I noticed while I was watching, they did require a little bit of re-wetting, like for the water to sit before they actually painted. So I would probably recommend spritzing a little bit of water on the top first before you went and painted. They're also extremely, like, the pigments themselves are extremely like earthy, I think is the best way to describe them. They look quite natural. Like, if you have a look at this magnetite, like, look at the crazy granulation you're getting in it, and the pigments themselves are kind of like sticking together, and I think there's a technical term for that, but it's just they react very, very differently to, say, the paints that I was using last week, which were the Agalo paints. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of streakiness. That being said, the ochres themselves are extremely smooth, as well as the slate. And I think it's just a different way of painting, so it's just something that you have to take into account when you're using it. I'm going to try and do a test paint with all of these and see what I can do, but I might have to mix in some of the others, because I find that the Mayan red for what I want to paint, which is Disney, might be a little bit too granulating. So we'll see how that goes. I'll probably test it to do some shading as well. But I find like maybe this red ochre and the yellow ochre might mix together to make an excellent skin tone. Not many of these colors are transparent at all. I mean, I can see on the top of each of these black lines that the color actually sits on top, so they're not completely transparent. Let's say like the whole bean ones, which are almost all of them are quite transparent. And you can tell that as well, because Greenleaf and Blueberry actually do the pre-swatching. You can kind of see that their logo has completely disappeared in all of these. So I wouldn't recommend doing line work first for this and then painting on top, because you'll lose all of your line work. So they're quite opaque. So it's just something to consider when you're using them as well. So Greenleaf and Blueberry use extremely high quality pigments, which is why some of their paints are quite expensive. But and then a lot of them are like some of them are natural gemstone pigments, like for example azurite, which is like an absolutely gorgeous color with strong granulation. You can kind of see it splitting with the blue. And Peppercorn, so Connie tells me that it's because azurite comes from the malachite. They are like in the same rock, because sometimes you have a little bit of it in it, and I think that's like a gorgeous effect that you can get there. Some of these colors are super, super strong. Like for example, the violet hematite, I touched it with my brush and it was super opaque almost immediately. Some of them, like green earth, required a little bit more work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a test paint, and we'll see how we go. So I'm going to be using my favorite watercolor sketchbook, the Perfect Sketchbook, to do the test. I'm following on from Inktober, so that, you know, kind of killing two birds with one stone. I'm going to start by doing a really flat wash on the back, because I don't want it to distract from the main figure. Unfortunately, a lot of the Greenleaf and Blueberry colors aren't quite flat, because they do use the natural pigments, so I've had to use a little bit of my Agalo colors for that. And I'm going to talk to you guys about regret right now, because that is what I was feeling right after I painted on this like red splodgy cloud of cloud of hair, and I was just thinking to myself, wow, I really hope this works out, because it really doesn't look like it's going to work out, and I regret this a lot. I kept on dabbing at it and hoping it would get better, but the red just kept spreading like a little, I don't know, like when you spill wine on the table and it goes everywhere. But that's okay. I keep telling you guys, don't rip out pages of your sketchbook and just kind of persevere. So I am, and I did. So I just kind of let it dry for a bit while I brainstormed how to fix that bizarre red curly broccoli cloud thing that I painted. So I'm gonna go paint the rocks. So I painted the rocks a bit, and the rocks probably worked really well with the with these watercolors, because the natural pigments in the colors made it granulate really nicely, so the colors clumped together really nicely and created this really lovely natural effect. So I'm thinking that if you were using this set to paint landscapes, it probably would be perfect, because it just adds this lovely grittiness to your paintings that a lot of smooth colors don't have. I've mixed some of the ochres in her set, which are really nice and smooth, like they've been milled lovely, and the particles are really fine to make the skin color. And I did a wash of that first, and then slowly built up the colors to make the toning. Because I'm painting on a cold pressed paper, there is a little bit of the texture of the paper coming through already, and I'm just using a little bit of purple to tone everything as well, just to kind of tie the whole image together, I hope. Because at this point you're kind of looking at it and you're like, is it too late to fix this painting? I don't know. So I'm using a little bit of the Mayan green as well to kind of dab it on, and the colors, they're not the same as how I'm used to using them, because they layer on differently because of the properties of the pigment. So I think I'd like to do a lot more tests when I'm doing bigger paintings on just how these colors react next to each other, because some of them float to the top, like that green for example, and some of them are much stronger. They're kind of just like they kind of overpower everything around them. I'm using a thinner brush to do the line work around the eyes. I'm using a little bit of the black in the set, as well as I'm using azurite for the blues of her eyes, and then some of like just the deep red from the Agalo palette, just to get the lipstick on it. I'm using the browns in the palette to do the outline. I'm kind of varying between a few of them, but I find that just doing a bit of softer line work works well. I'm just using the Mayan green to do the line work around the tail and the little details. I painted the tail with malachite, was probably my favorite color on the palette, which is just a soft turquoise. And now I'm using a little bit of the Perylene maroon in the Agalo set, and that's mixed with the Mayan red in the Greenleaf set to just tone the hair. What I'm doing now is, because I added that cloud of hair beforehand, it's kind of added this like, you know when you go to dye your hair, maybe you don't, it's kind of added highlights already to the hair. So it's given it a little bit of variation, so maybe it would work out a little bit better than I thought. So because the watercolors are mostly transparent, as I layer on the next layer of pigment, you can still see a little bit of that variation in tone coming through from underneath the hair, and I totally planned that. No, I didn't. But I'm pretty pleased that it kind of worked out. So I've just darkened the back of her hair so that it kind of looks like the hair at the front is a little bit brighter, and it just gives a little bit of depth to the kind of cloud. I kind of put like a little blob around it, and I realized I should probably have her hair flicking off the ends, and kind of just naturally painted some ends off that, and then just added a few loose strands with the tip of my brush. And I'm kind of tipping, like all I did was sprayed the card, and I'm dipping the brush almost directly into the card, so that it's a super bright pigmented color. So it's the red is the scarlet red from the Argalo set, and it's just a lovely bright red. I'm using the Mayan blue from the Greenleaf set to just do these little splashes, kind of just like painting a few things. I'm leaving a few gaps because I'm thinking that's where it kind of looked like the foam is coming through, and I'm just mixing that with a bit of the green sometimes, or a bit of the azurite to make it a little bit brighter, and just doing a few of those splashes. And I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. On the bottom of the page, I've tinted it already with a little bit of azurite, so the blues on the bottom of the page are much stronger than the top, where the undercoat is all in the purple, so it's pushing a little bit of pink through the colors as well. And now I'm using I'm using the number 4 brush just to add a little bit more detail and depth to the rocks. I used a little bit of graphite. The graphite in the Greenleaf and Blueberry set is crazy. It's like drawing with liquid lead. It's got like these tiny little sparkles in it, and it's just a really, really cool color. I'm not sure, like I have to experiment with how to use that as a paint, because as a grey by itself, it's got a little bit too much character to just use on like an everyday painting because of the amount of sparkle in it. But I love sparkle, so that works well for me. At this point now, I'm just adding a little bit of white gouache. The other way you could have done it is masked it first, but I was a bit lazy. So you could have masked it underneath and then rubbed the masking off, and that actually would have made this the whites pop a lot more than the way I've done it here with the gouache. But that's okay, sometimes it happens. So I had masking taped the book first just to get that really sharp line, and I'm going to add just a little bit of gold to the page as well, because I'm kind of addicted to this new Holbein gouache that I've been using, because it's got like chunky glitter particles in it and it just catches the light and it looks really, really cool. So I'm just putting that on everything for a while, but I think that's okay. I like it. Okay, so I've just finished painting this Little Mermaid scene. The reason why I picked the Little Mermaid was because it's day 10, I think, in October, and the prompt was flow, and I kind of thought of her, and I'm kind of on a Disney run at the moment. But the thing is, probably not the best picture to pick, because she has like flaming red hair, and in order to get around that, I couldn't actually use the Mayan red that was in the thing, so I actually had to use this scarlet red that I got as a dot card from A Gallo Paints. But that's okay, because I ended up using the scarlet red to do a lot of the toning here that you saw earlier on, and a little bit of this wine colored maroon as well from this dot card. So that was the hair, but most of the other stuff is of the Greenleaf and Blue. That's a lie. I also did this back color that's using a mix of transparent cerulean. I think it's from this set. Transparent cerulean, and I mixed that with the rose, just so that I could get that really like smooth pink color. And because because all of the Greenleaf and Blue colors are actually natural, they're all natural pigments, they do granulate a lot, and I didn't want granulation in the back of this picture, so I wanted more of the focus on the front, which is why I kind of did that. But otherwise, almost everything else is using Greenleaf and Blue. So the skin color I did using a mixture of the red and the yellow ochre, mainly because I found that the red and yellow ochre were extremely smooth on the swatch cards, because when I pull them up, here's the swatch cards, you can see that they're really nice smooth colors, and they blended beautifully, and they make an excellent skin color. All the line work and everything is done in Castle Earth, which is this one here, as well as and then the greens and everything were a mixture of the Mayan greens and the Mayan yellow, so you get that nice bright color. It looks a little bit like a sap green. I've used malachite for the tail. It's like this beautiful turquoisey pastel green, which I really enjoyed using. And I tinted the bottom of this page using azurite, which is a gemstone color. So it kind of like you can kind of see it granulating on the edges, and that was really lovely. The stonework, this dodgy rock that I painted is all done using the these colors. Are actually perfect for doing stuff like landscapes, because they get that natural variation in the paint. So it's like mostly Castle Earth, a little bit of red earth, and also violet hematite, and the azure violet as well. So they I found really worked well, and a little bit of purple ochre, and you can just kind of see the granulation kind of adds like some extra effect to the rocks where I didn't shade it myself, but it still looks really nice. The purples I did end up mixing off a dioxide violet off this card again. I probably should have picked a landscape to draw instead of Ariel, because she has such bright colors, which just doesn't really match natural colors. And the thing is, it's a shame because like some of this is just lovely. I used the Mayan blue to do all this at the bottom. Mayan blue is just like this lovely color, and it mixes and dilutes well as well, so that you can get quite a lot of tones through it. So you can kind of see it has a lovely variation in it. You also notice that I outlined everything after, mainly because I realized that the paints were quite opaque, but you can work around them. And recently I've been outlining things afterwards anyways, in a complementary color, so that the whole thing kind of looks a little bit more tied together and a bit softer. Overall, I'm really happy with these. I probably picked the wrong picture for it, but I think in the future I might probably will use these a little bit more for more landscapey type pictures. I am still missing a few of these colors, but they're just like, you can see there's just a lot of care that's put into making these beautiful watercolors, and just like a lot of care in these and just creating such rare pigments. So like malachite and azurite, they're like gemstones, and I'm kind of like painting gemstones a little bit luxurious all over my page. So they might not be ideal for a beginner artist because they're a little bit harder to use, because you have to understand pigments a lot more in order to mix them, and a little bit more experimentation. And of course they also have quite a bit of character on their own. Like you can see there, just like sometimes this one kind of shocked me, this magnetar. Just look at how much it granulates and clumps, and it's just like something like that. It just looks like beautiful for something like a rocky or seascape. So try and pick the right colors to match what you're trying to do, unlike what I did. But I still managed to experiment a bit, and I'm really looking forward to using these in the future. I think if you're wanting to have a more beginner set, but you do want to try handmade colors, the A-color colors might work a little bit better. They're also a little bit more affordable. I'm looking forward to trying a few of Connie's paints, the peppercorns, in the future as well, so I'll be able to tell you what I thought about those. But look out for these, my future videos. I'll probably be using a few colors every now and again. I don't think I'll be using the whole set just to do one painting, because I'm not much of a landscape painter. Might be good for architecture though, but I'm not ready to paint what I do for work yet in these videos. So I hope you found that video useful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks, bye.